Hello everyone, welcome to this End Times Watcher session. My name is Carl and I am just an End Times Watcher. In this session, I will once again cover secular events, especially since the recent World Health Assembly outcome is of interest to most of us End Times folks. This is the 77th World Health Assembly, short form WHA 77. There are a few new agreements related to pandemic. The first time I tried to follow the progress, I developed a bad headache. Then I waited until the assembly was over and tried to pick up their published documents. I read until my brains were numbed. The legalistic and loops that the document took me caused me to almost give up. However, I persevered and I hope that what I gleaned up will be valuable to you. Warning, I am biased towards the next pandemic and the big V word, so I will filter out chunks of the documents and focus only on sections that could affect our freedom. On June 1st, at the end of the assembly, WHO issued a statement that they had made good progress with the amendments that will bring them closer to complete the pandemic agreement. Interestingly, at the end of this video, you will note that the PA or Pandemic Agreement is a set of global laws that they are pushing since COVID-19. It is not a blank paper that they are trying to draft. It is a planned agenda that they are trying to push through. WHO announced four major amendments that they are happy with. Introducing the term pandemic emergency and define what it means, building and strengthening the capability to deal with a pandemic emergency, establishing committees to push this forward, and finally, creation of national IHR. Actually, because they are so satisfied with these four achievements, it helped me focus when I rewrite the documents. The two main ones are pandemic emergency and national IHR. This round, the 77th World Health Assembly was held from 27 May to 1st June. The document that's of interest to us is Agenda Item 13.3. You can download the PDF from this official WHO website. The term that you need to pay attention to is IHR. IHR is more than just a set of regulations. From 1st June, this term will refer to both local and global forces formed under the purview of WHO, very much like a special police force created to maintain public health and order for the betterment of the world. At least that will be the front they were putting forward. Let's take a look at the term pandemic emergency. This is a newly coined term. Why do they want to have such a term, pandemic emergency? If I let my imagination go wild, terms like state of emergency, curfew, martial law, and the likes come to mind. On the surface, it is defined as having a wide geographical spread, exceeding the capacity of a health system to handle, and causing substantial social and economic disruption. These by themselves sounds fair, but already the engineer in me started asking, how wide is wide? And how substantial before one classify this to be an emergency? For recession, the official definition is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. That is precision. However, not only is this definition lacking precision, it had added an even more ambiguous phrase, at high risk. When does one consider the situation is at high risk? The way I see it, the world is at high risk of being placed under pandemic emergency. Next, look at the definition National IHR. There are two entities, National IHR Authority and National IHR Focal Point. You will hear these two mentioned more and more in your local news from now on. The National IHR will operate within the jurisdiction of a country. State party is their legalistic way of saying a country. So National IHR will be formed within a country. It will be owned by the country and within the country's control. But look at the primary purpose of its existence. It's a contact point back to WHO. At the global level, WHO will also have an IHR as central coordinator, and they will also pass down information through this to the country. In other words, they report to WHO and will pass down directives from WHO. One of the roles of national IHR is surveillance. They have very detailed breakdown on what to monitor to ensure control of pandemic spread. In principle, this is good, but later you will see words included that are not favorable to non-vaxxers. Countries are given up to 5 years to develop their comprehensive surveillance and can apply for 2 years extension if justifiable. This means that the national IHR will be fully functional and effective by mid-2029 or at worst 2031. What was targeted to be in place by 2030? Yes, CBDC. I skip the checking out cargoes etc. and bring you to Article 31 within the document called Agenda 13.3. I would encourage you to download this PDF document and replay this video so that you can see and read for yourself as I analyze the document. Let's zoom in. The good news is that no invasive medical examinations is required as a condition to allow a traveller to enter a country. But then there's this exception. Every time you see the phrase "except that," pay attention to what the exception is. This is a good place to sneak in overriding words and make the original statement meaningless. This regulation does not preclude. What's the meaning of preclude? I have to check the dictionary. It means does not stop. In other words, the country can do the following: perform medical examination and demand proof of vaccination. Performing medical examination here implies the inclusion of invasive medication, since it is overriding the earlier statement of no invasive medical examinations. Sneaky, right? And then we have this clearly written and in no uncertain terms. A country can force vaccination on a traveller under this justification. We next look at Article 32, 42 and 45 and see what this says. Article 32. Travellers are to be treated with respect for their dignity. This is good. However, look at Article 42. In the name of health risk, actions must be done without any delay. You have no time to think about it. You cannot say, wait, let me call my lawyer first. And then in Article 45, it sounds good that your data will be kept confidential, but the country has the right to disclose your private data in the name of health risk. Yes, you are at high risk. We are not done yet. Article 31 have 2 points. Let's look at the second point. If you do not agree to this, the country can deny you entry. Okay, I can buy that. Just wait at the airport and catch the next flight out. However, if there is evidence that you are a health risk, the country can compel you. In everyday English, they can force you. Force you to do what? That dreaded V word. And it does not end here. We need to move to Article 23 to see what is in the article for the complete picture. Paragraph 3 of Article 23. Paragraph 3 says that if you do not consent, they cannot do medical examination or perform vaccination, except that paragraph 2 of Article 31 can override it. The exception clause again. What is Article 31? We just went through that. This is Article 31. So it goes back to the same point that they can force vaccination on you if they deem you to be a high risk. During COVID-19 pandemic, those not vaccinated were deemed high risk. Not high risk to themselves, but a high risk to the general vaccinated public. It does not make any logical sense, but the public sentiment, due to media brainwash and fear, treated those non-vaccinated as if they have leprosy. Will this happen again? If you are unvaccinated, you are a high-risk person. A country can force vaccination on you. This is what this pandemic agreement is all about. Will this affect travelers only? I'm not so sure, especially if your country fully supports WHO and vaccination as the solution. When will the next pandemic hit us? Around 2029, when the national IHR are in place? The unvaccinated will be at risk whether you're abroad or huddled at home. It is very likely that most member countries will take less than 5 years to be ready. Are you ready? There is another document that we should not ignore. This is Agenda 13.4. At the end of this assembly, they have decided to finish outstanding work as soon as possible by next year before WHA 78 or earlier. They're prepared to have a special session this year to resolve this next month, July. This is how urgent they want to get this agreement through. I decided to pick another news outside of WHO that regurgitate the same thing. The deadline to pass the agreement PA is next year 2025 at the 78th WHA, and they will resume meeting in July this year. After that, countries have 1 year to object or forever hold their peace. That means that by 2026, this agreement will be law. Remember in my earlier session, S06, I said that Disease X's earliest possibility is 2026. Since this pandemic agreement is gaining momentum, I decided to follow through its development in our next session. I will be somewhat busy in the month of July, but hopefully I can still be able to objectively analyze the outcome of July's meeting. Till then, this is Kyle. See you in the next session. If you find this video beneficial, please click the like icon. YouTube algorithm automatically recommends it to others if there are higher like counts. You can also subscribe to my channel so that you can see my past and future videos. Finally, please forward and share with your friends so that they too can benefit. Thank you and God bless.